So please give a hand as we welcome Jeff Caldwell II.
Good evening. All right, so this has been a long time coming. I've been involved with the Libertarian Party of Kansas since 2010. I took a little break between 2015 and 16, so I took about a year off. But when I was first brought into the party, I had no idea what the hell I was doing. Like, the person that handed it over basically had an email list for me, and she's like, we meet at Denny's and Overland Park this day once a month, and we have a meeting. I was like, okay. So when I first started, I started teaming up with people on the Kansas City, Missouri side because they've been more active locally than the Kansas side at that time. Like the Liberty Restoration Project with Tracy Ward was doing a lot of demonstrations where they were protesting the red light cameras. They met with Mayor Funkhauser, who was the mayor of Kansas City at the time, so I kind of teamed up and went to that meeting with him. And so I basically started learning different things. I would attend these meetings, and a lot of people would go back and forth between the state lines because we both believe in spreading libertarian ideology, and we wanted to focus on same topics and spread liberty and reduce government. But starting on 2010, basically what I've done is I've gone from an email list that was about 100 people, and now it's about 600 people. I started a Facebook page for the 3rd District Libertarian Party of Kansas. It now has a little over 750 people who like or follow it. We do have a group as well, a Facebook group. And so the reason why I have both is because the page allows for more of the information spreading, whereas the group is more of a discussion area. It's an open group, but you gotta get approval to join and whatever, so that way we don't have any trolls come in and like destroy the environment. But what happens is when you create an event in the group, it invites all of your friends who are in that group to the event, so they get notified. If you create the event on a Facebook page, it doesn't invite anybody. And so what happens is when I create the event on Facebook, I can then go into a little tab that allows me to add it to each page that I run. And so it spreads through the Facebook community that way. But that's something that takes a little bit of time to learn, and you don't necessarily reach people who don't use Facebook. So that's where the email list also comes into play. I have a website for the 3rd District, but it's not as integrated as the Libertarian Party of Kansas. Libertarian Party of Kansas's website uses Nation Builder, so it basically locks in everybody who has either gone to our Facebook page and liked our Facebook page, and it also locks in anybody who comments on Facebook. So Nation Builder through our website actually is connected to the Facebook end as well. So it pulls everybody into a database. And this is where your volunteerism of being a administrator is well needed, because we have about 9,500 people that we have to go through on Nation Builder. I've personally gone through about 2,500. It takes hours. Another thing is in order to help build an email list, we get an email list for national. And so I get all these names, I send them an email saying, hey, this is our next meeting, but then I load them into the database as well. So that's one way that you're able to grow the Libertarian Party with a database aspect. But what's really important is the face-to-face meetings. That's where you get people to come, show up, show their support, and Tim actually has been to a couple of our meetings on the Kansas side. I think the first one that I know that he came to was the Debate Watch Party. which was on April 1st in 2016 on John Stossel. So that's actually a very interesting event that I put together. I think I was one of the first people in the nation to realize that we need to have a debate watch party for the Libertarian Party, because it took a couple months to plan. I reached out to a local bar and I was like, hey, I would like to rent out like your space and have you guys play the debate. It's going to be from this time to this time, and it's on April 1st. And so they were fine with it initially. 2 days before the event happened, I get a phone call from the owner. And he's like, I don't want you guys to have this event. We're not wanting to be a political organization. And the reason why I figured out that I wanted to have it at this place is because they hosted Republican events. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, okay. So when he said that, I go, I didn't even say anything. Like, I waited for him to speak, I didn't want to like give up any ground. So he's like, well, since it's already going on, we're gonna let you have it. So this was my first event coming back to the Libertarian Party of Kansas. I had taken about a year off. And so with that being said, about 60 people came to this event. It was one of the biggest events that we've had in the Kansas side at a local level. It was bigger than the last event that we had. But the reason why that's important is because I was actually able to grow the email list at that time as well. So whenever you have an event, you're going to want to collect all the emails from everybody who comes. So that way they are alerted. They don't necessarily have to be on Facebook in order to get notified, but one way is once you create these events on Facebook, you sponsor them. And that's a very important thing because you actually reach people who don't even know what a libertarian is. The number one thing that I've had to overcome is people not knowing what a libertarian is. Like, people at my work don't know what a libertarian is. They're like, well, isn't that a liberal? And I'm just like, yeah, a classical liberal, but they don't know what that even means because the Democrats have hijacked the liberal ideology. So I have to explain to him or them that what a libertarian is. He's like, oh, I'm 100% on board. So when you reach out to these new people, you don't necessarily even have to have somebody who understands or knows about the Libertarian Party. They can see an event that is meaningful for them, like the Debate Watch Party, where you have a new political party. The number one thing that people want in the United States is a third party, and we are the third party. They just don't know it exists yet. So you got to reach out to them. But over my progression since 2010 up to now, there's been aspects that I've changed about my events in order to get more people to come. And it's finding out what people truly, really want to learn about, or what's going on around the community in order to help them get energized about the topic. Like, when I first started out, one of my first events was a constitutional law class that lasted for about 2 or 3 months. I had a lawyer come and teach constitutional law, and this was back in 2010, and we actually had about 15 to 20 people come to each meeting, and I would send them out the notes. And the interesting thing is that doesn't accomplish too much. It gets people to come, but it doesn't really talk about the discussion that we need to have in order to shrink government, or the steps that the Libertarian Party needs to take in order to accomplish our goals, to run candidates. It's more of an information session, which is nice, but that's not what we should be striving for. We should be striving to get people to run for office, people who want to volunteer for candidates who want to run for office. But at the same time, we need to be informational as well. So I have changed it from being a complete informational aspect to including the reasons why we need to run for office. Now, going back into your flub, national versus local, it does go together. I had an idea for Gary Johnson when there was the debate at St. Louis. I called St. Louis University and I was like, hey, I would like to reserve the space to have like a protest where people come and speak to a crowd, and because you have the ability to do that. And they're like, well, you need to get in contact with your local police chief of St. Louis University. So I called the local police chief and I was like, hey, I want to do this. And he's like, all right, well, let me run this by the debate people. Yeah, and so it got passed. But what happened was I started planning this like 2 months in advance. So my idea was to have people like Kurt Russell, the people who made South Park, Vince Vaughn, Drew Carey. I wanted these people to come and speak on the reason why Gary Johnson needed to be in the debate. Yeah. Gary Johnson's campaign decided not to do it. That would have bolstered local outreach dramatically. We would have had the media like pouring to the event just for our protest, you know, and that would give us a platform in order to move forward. It would astronomically grow numbers, but they decided not to do it. But it was lined up to go. It got to like the second or third person in the campaign. They decided not to do it, but that's not me, you know. Whatever. I tried. It's my idea. It's frustrating, but it gives me an avenue to take personally in order to get somebody to come to my events. It gives me ideas on reaching out to somebody like a celebrity in order to come and speak, and the reason why we need to have libertarians run for office because they don't even have people representing their ideology in office right now. So it's very important to get people to have a desire to come to meetings. I know I'm not like the most nationally known person at all, but I do like to share my ideas. But I think they're very important. A couple of ideas that I have that we could team up on. We'd have it in a Fed rally. I don't know when, but I had one, I think on the 4th of July one year. We had probably about 5 people show up. It wasn't very much. I mean, we didn't have any speakers or anything, but if you wanted to, we could host an in-Fed rally. We could reach out to people that are well-known, have them come and speak. And like, there was one in Pennsylvania that was well-attended because they had a whole list of speakers. So they nailed it. They hit it right on the head. But in order to grow the local party, we have to just reach out to individuals. We have to give them a reason to care. A lot of people over the course of the last 12 months have told me after I've gotten the national list, they're like, well, I don't want to be involved anymore because we can't make a difference. They actually believe that we aren't making any strides. They think that we are just not doing anything. And so I was like, I want you guys to just take a second to analyze what information I'm sending you and how we are growing, because my local base has grown dramatically. And I have 5 or 6 people who came to the debate watch party who have stuck with us the entire time. My most successful events were for candidates running for office. In 2016, I had 3 events. The first one was the debate watch party. That was the big kickoff on the candidates cycle. The second event that I had was called the Picnic for Liberty, and it actually rained that day. We still had about 40 or 50 people show up, and it was a fundraiser. It was a fundraiser for all of our candidates. What we did was we raised the money as the local party, and then we split it between each of the 3 candidates who were running for our local offices. I didn't pocket anything. I didn't put any of that money towards the 3rd district. I literally wrote the checks split by 3 to the 3 local candidates. That was our second largest event. I think our biggest event was our free pizza event. And so what I did there was I told Minsky's Pizza off of Midland Drive over in Shawnee. I was like, hey, I want to rent out your event room. And they're like, okay, well, you're going to have to either spend so much money or the room is so much money. I was like, all right. So I bought all the pizza. It was like $370. And the event that I created had Austin Peterson as the main event featured speaker. I mean, he's not a libertarian anymore, but at the time he was. And then we also had our 3 local candidates speaking. And we had about 60 or 70 people fill this room. We overfilled the room. We weren't supposed to have this many people come into the room. Like, it was a fire hazard. It went against city code. So as libertarians, we were like, yeah, just stand in the back, just don't say anything. And so we raised probably about $800, and we split that between all 3 candidates. But our most successful events were for candidates, and we had featured speakers, or we had like debate watch party, or we had a picnic. So I think in order to grow the party at the local level, it goes back to demonstrating that we're viable, that we actually are making meaningful change, that we offer solutions that people can register with. We are everyday people. We're not these lawyers who get elected and keep running for office. We can communicate and relate to most individuals. I want to end by talking about my last event, which was Sunday. And it was probably the biggest event that I've put together. It took a really long time. And I'm not talking about number-wise. I'm talking about like the powerhouse of the quality of speakers I had. I had an elected senator come and speak. I had the executive director of the ACLU of Kansas come and speak. And I also had an executive of an organization that also believed in legalization of cannabis. The ACLU of Kansas spoke about legalizing all drugs, and the reason why it's important for that. The senator has introduced multiple bills over the course of, since 2009, on legalization of cannabis or medicinal cannabis. And then Lisa Sublett was going to talk about her organization on how people can get involved and what bills they're doing.
She was awesome, by the way.
She was great. She was awesome. So each one of these people nailed it. Like, it was perfect. But the guy, it was the same situation as the debate watch party. I get a phone call from the owner of Twisters, and he's like, I don't want to be involved in politics. I don't want my bar to be associated with anything political. I don't want any signage. I don't want any media. And I was like, oh, because I had reached out to the media. And I called each one of them, and I was like, I sent you an email, and the owner doesn't want you to come. They all were going to show up. They were coming. We would have had such a foundation to present to individuals as how we are making change at the local level. We need to rent out spaces that allow for us to fully express ourselves and allow for the media to be there. So as you organize events, as you gain more popularity, as you create bigger and bigger events and bigger event spaces, it's important to go over every aspect of the meeting with the private entity that you're renting from, especially if you want to get the media there. Because if they don't want the media there, you might want to rethink the event location and space. But besides that, I think if we present things from a rational perspective and have high quality speakers represent our ideology, and we show people that we're making a difference, more and more people will come.